This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Plan Committee Ordinance Working Session meeting to order. It's May 26, 2026 at 12 p.m. And we have a quorum. In fact, we have everyone I was expecting because Laird, I don't know if he was having cataract surgery or his wife's, one of them. He told me he was in Sturgeon Bay today.
Green Bay.
Green Bay, okay. Tonight. And I also invited, I missed a call with Kathy. I invited HBC to come too and, participate since they're going to be in some ways working with this ordinance too. And another thing in the back of my mind is when we get this done, we need to back check again with the HBC to make sure we're consistent between the two ordinances. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. Our agenda here has 4 things on it. And the 4th thing is signs. And in my absence last month,
Oh, yeah, we made some big decisions.
we talked about the big signs. And since that meeting, Brent and I met, we have a quarterly meeting with the Ephraim Business Council and the Historic Foundation. And I was kind of informed, which is great, that we're going to be sending, EBC is going to be sending an email out to try to get reactions to something suggested of that, those big sale signs, those tall skinny signs. And were you going to send something out from the village also, Brent?
Yeah, I'm gonna send basically to all our businesses, and Ephraim, just let them know we're going to be having a conversation, reiterate what our ordinance language is with respect to signs, and that we'd be having a dialogue in regard to commercial signage, some specific attention to the sale signs or the open close signs. And then we also discussed, the interesting challenges for multiple businesses on a single property that is condominiumized. So I've put in a draft of that kind of boilerplate together. I have reached out to 2 businesses, and you can probably connect the dots that are currently in violation of sign code. The one, let them know that the signs they have up need to be removed, and 2, that this dialogue is coming. So relative to your problems relative to visibility, the plan committee is looking to get, involvement from the business owners. And not that you're going to suggest what the proposed language would be, but let's talk about what the problem is you're experiencing and try to work through it together. So again, PW obviously is the major agenda item for the next couple of months, but I guess we'll just keep that information gathering process together, and as we get a little closer, maybe set a target for, we're going to discuss it in July or August, whenever that might be, so we can try to get some either reports in from them, emails from them, or if they want to attend a meeting, to let them know when that'll be. But at this point, I don't think we're dedicating a whole lot of time to that yet,
Right.
But I hope to give them a target at some point.
Good.
Brenda, can I ask you, can you tell us which 2 businesses you reached out to?
Businesses in Shorewood Village and then Modern Nomad.
Okay.
Thank you.
New place on way on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Brent.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, as we get closer, then we can certainly put them on the agenda first.
Yeah.
A little more housekeeping. I was thinking about dates of when we can meet to fix the protected waterfront ordinance. And I don't want to use all these, but to get them on the calendar, we've got the monthly meeting at noon at Plan Committee. I was going to suggest that we also do a noon meeting on the 2nd Tuesday, which is the village board meeting, but Brent tells me that'll work with the village board stuff. So if those dates would be then June 9 and July 14, and I'm going to be a pessimist now, and August 11th. So if you took us to August 11th, if it took us 6 working sessions, then that would not be in time to go to the village board meeting on August 11th, but we would have plenty of time then to get to the September meeting. So this should meet our schedule to have this thing done and in place by the end of the year. Are those dates workable for people?
I'm not available June 9th,
Okay,
but I think the other ones
I have to double check, but.
okay. Okay, yeah, let me know, because if we have a lot that aren't available on a particular day, maybe then I'll send out an email and,
Oh, August 11 is it, are we gonna meet at noon? Okay, I'm working the polls, so the 11th
Yeah,
isn't
that's an
election day.
Oh,
okay, okay.
election day, right.
Yeah, that's probably, is anybody else working the polls?
No.
Okay, let's hold those for now,
Okay.
and let's see how it does is if we start to get 2 or 3 people missing, then I can send out an email to everybody and look for an alternative day. Yeah, if you would,
Thank you, sir.
that would be good, thank you.
And then that would be in addition to the fourth
Right.
day as well.
Yeah, our regularly scheduled working session, I would say, is just going to be dedicated
Mhm.
to this topic. We're going to push everything else aside. Okay, a little more housekeeping. I asked Kim if she would, because she's done such a nice job, I remember her work on what makes Ephraim, helping us figure out what it was. I asked her if she would take all of our comments and put them in some kind of logical order, which I believe she did. And that's why we have this package of 6 pages. We have 6 pages of comments for a 2-page ordinance, so. It's a lot of comments to go through, but I think we've all been through kind of the challenge of this ordinance, so we had a lot of ideas, which is fine. And I asked her to assemble them, and she did. And then originally, they had everybody's initial. I took those off, because I was thinking of an approach, how we're gonna approach this, as opposed to just try to go from the top to the bottom and make sense out of it. And what I was thinking about doing, and I just want to bounce this off people, if other people have some ideas of how to tackle this, is I was looking at the different categories, and I'm thinking of trying to put some of these categories together, and then thinking of making assignments for people to come back with a presentation. And here's what I ask people to do. We have all made our personal comments. But when you look at these, try to look at them as a whole of everyone's comments, which are equal value and so forth, and not try to get into just defending your particular comment. So here's kind of let's do a quick walkthrough of how they're categorized right now, and I'll give you some thoughts that we can talk about as we go through. But the first thing Kim did is, a lot of people, probably everyone here, said, we got to define this, we got to define that, we got to define. So there's a whole list of things to be defined. And my thought as far as priorities is, until we start to dig into some of the meatier issues that we'll come to, I would suggest we leave the definitions to toward the end, and then we'll have a list of things that we really need to define. Right now, we're just kind of guessing that it'd be nice to have a definition for all these things. So I would say, and that'll probably come up in these assignments too, where it becomes obvious that certain things have to be defined. So I was going to put that kind of on the back burner. And then under considerations, the first thing is there's some comments on the historical preservation, kind of general comments, if you will. The intent of the ordinance, that was pointed out again. Standards and definitions. And then we come to structures. And I consider structures our first real meaty issue. And as I looked at structures, it occurred to me then if you go to the next page and see attachments, those are very, very similar to structures. It's again, trying to define what the structure is. And when I say structure now, not only the house, but accessory structures and so forth. So I was thinking that structures and attachments could be one category together that a group would tackle. Then the next is footprint that we come to. Another really big item that we've struggled with. And if you then go to the next page in square footage, it seems to me those are highly interrelated when we define the footprint and define the square footage. So I kind of thought that those could go together for a team. And then the third thing is height. You know, another issue that we dealt with, and we see some flaws in how it's working. And as I looked at height, I thought that went well with roof lines and pitches. Because I think as we've talked, the height might have worked with the right roof lines and kind of I'm dancing around the whole 1.5 story goal. And that's something that it's in one of these three that we have to make. I think we do have to try to come up with the definition of what the heck is a 1.5 story house. Because we talked about that a lot in changing the ordinance, but then it was never really reflected in the ordinance as this is our goal, a 1.5 story house. And then the last couple things that I didn't put in here, I looked at more global things. A couple comments on the visual impact. You know, what does that mean? I mean, we say it there, shouldn't have a visual impact, but so that needs more definition. And then there was, I think, one comment on landscaping. That's all the way at the end. And then I took the chairman's prerogative of adding one more category, which is if we want to try to define what are the submittals required for protected waterfront project. Are they unique? Are they different than for any other project in the village? And I think one of the things that caught my attention is the job that both of the current applicants did to, I think, make our life easy, where they actually did a plan view of here's the house, here's all the structures. And here's where I plan to build a new one, and demonstrating, maintaining footprint and so forth. The other thing I thought was very helpful, and then I'll get to the black book, just make a couple comments about that, is what's there right now. If we were to have a fire and it burned to the ground, I think we'd have kind of a hard time saying, what was there? What do those people have in footprint? Footprint, we could probably figure out volume, height. Yeah, it'd be hard. So that we'll save for the end. I think that's almost a housekeeping thing. Again, this is just my approach to it. Then let me say a couple things, and then I'm gonna kind of go down the line, ask for some ideas and comments. But the black book. I asked BD, and nice thing about BD is the answer is almost always yes.
Okay, don't say that too loud.
But I try not to waste time. But I said, let's walk the thing and take pictures. And we did that, I forgot, early spring, so there's nobody around. And we tried to capture on each house, not only the front and the back, but, oh, this looks like a deck, this looks like a porch, this looks like a screen porch, this looks like a window porch, to thinking about, you know, what we eventually define as footprint, the living area and all that. And then Kim, was this mainly from the assessor's office? She put all the information that we have on each property. And what I think is particularly neat about this thing is we're gonna have no additional houses in the protected waterfront according to the ordinance. So this should be a very handy document for the future for the planning committee, no matter who serves on it. It should be able to be easily updated. And then Kim also in that document's got a copy of the existing ordinance. I think it was Laird said, I'd like to see what the ordinance looked like before we change it the first time.
Yeah, that was,
So that's in there. Definitions are in there, all the definitions that we have. And then more information on spreadsheet for each house. And then also in there, I think Laird had asked for a summary of conditional uses over the past year or so. So
that's excellent. We talked about being able to document that in case anything gets challenged. Right, and that's really helpful.
now, as opposed to this approach, I saw Rick Hoyerman yesterday, and his suggestion.
I'm sorry.
His suggestion was, why don't we just muscle through this? We got till 6:15 to get this thing done. So
Did I say that?
I think you're kidding. I think it was tongue in cheek. But I was looking for a way that we could do this without having meetings that went a long, long time. Where I think if we took the group approach, then each group would be making a presentation to us. And then we can all kind of gather our thoughts and so forth and try to boil it down. But I'm gonna quit talking now. But what do folks think about the approach? Just comments.
Well, Ken, is the summary of your approach that we're gonna break these down like we did the other topics?
I think so, yeah. That's what I was thinking about.
15s again?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Right. Because there's so many different topics, I think it's really be hard to kind of go through at a meeting, all these different topics.
Should we identify those things that do not need to be changed first, if any? And so we can rule those out. And again, that there may not be a single thing here in 1720 that does not in fact get changed. That may be more likely, but I don't know. Should we start with that and then do that, what you're suggesting?
We walking through the ordinance itself?
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, before we jump into that, other just general comments on the approach.
Well, that'll require another extra meeting of two people to hash over, and it's only two people going over it.
Right.
Yeah, I like Rick's, let's whittle it down a little bit, if we could, to, what's really important, because some of these are a little repeated.
Oh, yeah.
And then maybe start from there. I like the whole group approach, because somebody that might have this idea and you might have that, and then, oh no, you would chime in with something else. So I
When
don't-
the committees came back, we ended up doing that with the group.
Yeah, so I'd almost rather,
Okay.
I liked your idea to whittling it away, but on the other hand, I like the whole group approach, because then we can say, oh no, we all agree this can be eliminated or whatever, and then move on and try to be focused and move on in a timely fashion.
Because one part may affect another part.
They do. There's
Yeah.
overlap. There's definitely overlap. Okay. Well, should we walk through the ordinance? It won't take long. It's only 2 pages long. And now there was some general comments on the intent. Now I have to find them. Yeah, it's the second topic. And there is some proposed language changes. That's on the second page under considerations intent. And a solution was offered. And I think this solution was mainly dealing with the volume, I think. I almost think with the intent, it's one of those things, it's kind of like the summary. that we can go back to at the end, once we do our work on some of the other areas and decide if we want to change the intent?
Where would we define, or how would we define open viewing space along our shoreline? Because I guess historically, as this has gone, there's been different opinions if that's from the bay looking in, from the road looking out. So we got into the weeds a little bit on this, Moravia Point and what a landscaping plan would look like there, trying to hide the guardrail. Or you hide the guardrail from the sidewalk, from the northbound lane as you sit in the car, from the shoreline. So I guess while I agree the intent could potentially come last, that could shape some of those decisions based on where we're trying to protect views from. And I think footprint itself, not allowing increases there, kind of minimizes the view lateral, I guess, how much view through a property.
Right.
If you've got a 100-foot wide lot, the house occupies 45 feet of that, you've got the remainder. So not allowing footprint increase limits that to a degree, but we do allow footprint modification that could, again, someone could have a long skinny,
Turn it.
that has one room with the direct view. They could turn that 90 degrees and add more horizontal or, perpendicular to the road or parallel to the road. Lot that would, from their standpoint, I think be understandable because they want to have a view of the water from the kitchen and the living room and, and then again, that too, as far as going up, are we protecting that view of the water or, the view to the sky? If someone's just adding that half story on top, you're not decreasing the lateral view, you're decreasing the vertical view. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think a little bit of the intent discussion might be that.
Okay. I agree. There was a comment made.
Yeah.
Someone made a comment on the fact that when we allow the shape of the footprint to change with the same square feet, it could result in a longer, thinner house that would impact the open viewing space. Maybe let me take one more step backwards. Are we all happy with 1.5 stories? I mean, that's what we agreed to a year ago. And I guess we were a little surprised that we ended up with 2 stories, but generally speaking, are we all happy with allowing the 1.5 story? Because that has to do with this view, if you will, of the sky or above.
That probably depends on how we define it, whether we're happy with it or not. If we do something like I've seen in here, I think I commented on it, where it's limited to, for example, within a roof line, if it's 50% or less of the ground floor square footage, we do things like that, then yes. And within the height limitations that we've already specified, maybe those change, but the 23 feet, for example, then I am happy with that then. The only thing I haven't been happy is when we talk, we're gonna allow 1.5 story, but no one knows what that is.
Yeah.
That's the only problem. So I think we just need to define that.
Okay.
I agree. I think the vertical, we've already got the 23 feet, so I don't think that impacts people so much. Usually they're driving or they're walking and they're looking through the buildings. And so would we consider maybe putting a percentage? Let's say somebody wants to combine two buildings on one.
Of course you can, right? We've already interpreted
I know,
that, right?
right. But let's say 50%, I don't know what the percentage would be, but, or 60% can be blocking the view and 40% not. I don't know. Talk about that. That would be measurable.
Is it too simplistic to define open viewing space as can you see the water from the road? I mean, that's kind of, I think, seems to me what it boils down to. You want to be able to look through and see water
Through where?
From the road.
But I mean, on top of, this is my question too, because like the Lutz house, which is at the, like toward the end, and it's sort of like just one story, And if they want to go up, then is somebody going to complain that they had a view above
Across the
that?
street from the second floor.
I mean, I don't know. And then is it fair for us not to let them go up because other people have? So when we're saying through, I agree with you, but then what does that mean?
Does that mean as a person or driving a car or a person's height? Is that the view we're looking at?
Or does it mean through in between the houses
Mhm.
instead of above?
In between structures. And
Well, most people aren't.
I think I would add something that you cannot decrease the amount. I mean, frankly, a lot of those lots would benefit from losing some trees, for example. Well, in terms of increase, that would increase the view. But we can't control that. The general gist of this is to leave everything the way it was
Mhm.
and is. Which would say you can't reduce it. If you want to rearrange the footprint, fine, but you can't reduce the see-through or whatever we call that. To me, that's what open viewing space means, but you're right, it's not that simple.
Well, we should set the table then for that in intent.
Yeah,
And for example, I'm just throwing it out there where it says, for as much open viewing space within the first sentence, especially as when viewed towards Eagle Harbor in between structures. And we could add some language like that where we kind of set, because the intent, I think, is kind of a mission statement for this whole section.
good.
So maybe put some language in between space and along, or wherever makes the most grammatical sense. And we're talking mainly about viewing towards Eagle Harbor in between structures, or something to that effect. And then we can get into detail into the body of the ordinance.
Yeah, I think it's already been said, unless someone comes to us with a project and they said, and by the way, I'm going to re-landscape, then I think we have to think about some kind of language of a landscaping plan. But if somebody is just coming to us and they say, I'm going to replace this building and I don't want to touch the landscaping, that's as far as we're going to go, correct? We're not trying to open up lots by removing landscaping that's there.
Well, I don't think we can.
Right, but I mean, just as a philosophy thing.
I do think whatever we say here should include landscaping, if nothing else by inference.
Well, he said in between structures.
Yeah.
So now if
I guess that wouldn't include landscaping. would
It would.
Yeah.
Well, we already ran into that with Christ.
Yeah.
We did.
And we kind of pounded on them to get the
This way,
parallel
but not this way, yeah.
to 42 inches.
But that's because my recollection is Price came with a landscaping plan. Now, if somebody would come and say, I'm clearing this lot, I'm building a house here and here's my landscaping plan, then I think we'd want to write this in such a way that we could look at what happened with Price and have something with landscaping parallel to the road to not exceed 42 inches, have some kind of statement in there. But the point I'm making is, we're not trying to write this ordinance to take down any existing landscaping. Are we all kind of in agreement on that?
I don't think we can.
Well, right.
If somebody has a very intense lot with trees and shrubs and whatnot, is that grandfathered only to the extent that you can't touch it? And once they remove it, let's say they clear it all out to build, now I'm sorry, you're starting over. That's no longer grandfathered and you can't replace the same density of trees, whatever. Is that to be assumed or not? And they may come back and say, I'm just replacing what I had there.
I think not without writing it down.
Yeah.
It can't be assumed. I mean, we had the same kind of challenge village-wide of what we wanted to do with lot clearing. We talked about that a little bit, but we never went any further, but we'd have to give that some thought.
And does it affect the lots that have no structures but have trees on them? Like the ones in front of the Murphys? Or
Oh, right.
Murray's?
Right. Murphy?
Murphy? Because then if, where is it?
Where's that?
That's the one where they, just south of the marina, and I'll call it our south part of the shoreline,
Oh,
they planted kind of this, almost like a rectangle, and it grew up. you know, was initially short and now it's pretty
Oh,
tall.
yeah, the White House. the big
So
White
it does,
Yeah.
that blocks a view, and
House, right.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
What about places that will never have a house because they don't have a structure right now?
Mhm.
How are we gonna deal with that?
Yeah. Got away from us.
It did.
Or open spaces provided that any structural elements are given conditional use of the right of the beaches. Yeah, do we, yeah.
Well, again, this is kind of the intent, and then we'll fill in the details below, but I think, is that a good start, what Rick has suggested?
Well, wouldn't we, if we're gonna do landscaping, if there's gonna be specific requirements, where that's gonna be in design criteria or, you know, general requirements, additions,
Right.
that wouldn't be, it'd be in design criteria, correct? Or other requirements,
Mhm.
be something like that. I think the intent is just, I think, just a mission statement that we just kind of say, this is why we're doing this.
Right.
Well, and the visual impact on the suggestions, someone suggested, no structural changes shall be approved if they reduce views of Eagle Harbor from the street.
Right.
I suppose we could add that sentence, maybe, is that too much, or?
But that would say that then people, if you can't change that, if you got a rectangle of a footprint and you can't change the width, you can't change the depth either. That would be restricting people to the exact same footprint.
Well,
Right.
if it's vertical to the shore,
Oh, you can make it thinner.
yeah, you
Yeah,
can make
yeah,
it thinner,
yeah.
but you could,
So,
But you can't turn it.
yeah, but you can't make it longer and reduce the views of the
right,
Eagle Harbor.
right, yeah. Practically speaking, for a lot of those houses, the footprint is so small,
It's not much.
it's not gonna have that much of an impact, but maybe we could look at that, because that was a comment that was made, and come up with a number or a percentage or something that, again, with the idea that open viewing is being defined as view in between structures, that when the footprint is changed, the width, if you will, the dimension parallel to 42 cannot be changed by more than a certain percent, if that's our concern here, the open viewing. What's hard is every structure is so unique.
Say that again, though, open viewing cannot be changed.
Well,
Or-
what we're saying is we're defining open viewing in between structures. And then someone made the comment, one person, that, well, should we allow houses, I'll just use the term wider, the dimension longer parallel to 42, because that would reduce the open viewing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we want to not have happen.
Yeah. But like I said, most of the structures are fairly small, not all of them. And the other thing that probably impacts this, and we have to look at the black book now in a way, how many structures are already non-conforming side yards?
I don't want to say most of them, but a fair number of them.
And so that position almost solves itself, because we wouldn't allow it to become more non-conforming than it is now.
No, but it all, I mean, a lot of them seem to hug one side. You know, there's an example tonight where it's tight on, I'll call it the north property line, but there's a lot of room to the south.
Yeah.
So again, that's where we grandfather those numbers where they're at, but they still potentially, minus the open viewing space, they could potentially take a chunk that's on the backside close to the road and add that 200 square feet, you know, as a kitchen or whatever on the south side, increasing that width and be compliant to setbacks.
Right. Right. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about. There would be room there because of the position of it. to still be compliant on the south side.
Well, could we change this to structural changes may not be approved if they reduce views of Eagle Harbor from the street? Or is that too?
Where are you suggesting?
Well, I'm looking under
Under,
suggestions and visual impact.
oh, okay, I thought
So we were gonna add that, maybe
but where would that?
that would go under intent,
Mhm.
because we want to define the visual impact too, right, in an intent. Or is that too vague, maybe?
Well,
I think
it
it's
starts to jump into detail, but I think
Yeah, I
the
think
intent is meant to be,
more general.
yeah, more general
Okay,
than,
That would be an application of the principle, I think.
yeah, I'm just thinking about where that would probably go. I guess that would go all the way down to design criteria.
Yeah.
Is where it would probably be below
Well, do we want to, maybe that's a quick poll for the group.
Yeah.
Do we want to be that restrictive?
Yeah.
And just say that? I mean, that's awfully restrictive.
It is.
And I'm
Well,
not saying
unless we're gonna try to apply a percentage.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't think we can just simply say that you're not gonna be allowed to make the thing any wider. Because then they're almost stuck. They could either make it narrower or that's it. And nobody's gonna probably make it more narrow, so they have less of a view.
right.
Well, what do people think? Are we good with just, now we're gonna have a definition here that under the intent, the open viewing space, to provide as much open viewing space, especially of Eagle Harbor, in between structures, blah, blah, I want to word that better. Is that good enough, or do we want to try to further define that? What do people think? Can we work with that? And that would be our lever right there.
I think the intent should be vague, just to kind of provide an overarching kind of goal, if you will. Because like if it comes to Board of Appeals, or if a Board of Appeals case was challenged, it all comes down to, is the spirit of the ordinance, the intent of the ordinance in question upheld in this decision for or against? So that's where I think just the general
Right.
purpose, if you get too specific.
I guess what I'm suggesting, do people have a desire to be more specific under, say, design criteria, or is this good enough?
I think adding that in between structures is a really good idea,
Okay.
because it lets people know what we're looking at
Mhm.
as far as, we aren't looking at the height, because we're letting people go up to 23 feet. We're gonna talk about that later.
Mhm.
But it lets people know, like, what is our idea of open viewing space in a general sense,
Mhm.
but specifically, so enough so that people have a clue.
So you would be happy, you'd be satisfied with just putting an intent and not try to further define it?
Well, we may need to further define it later, but I think if it's in the intent, it would be a good idea.
Okay, are we all in agreement that we want it in the intent?
I think so too, because then that's the starting point, the intent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
what's it? We want to add the little wording that Rick.
Right,
See if that's-
right,
Yeah,
right.
okay, good.
Right.
We're not talking about the proposed solution on the visual impact,
No,
that belongs someplace else, and that's a separate question, whether we want to say that or not.
right,
Right.
and that's, I thought as long as we're talking about it.
Yeah.
As long as it's fresh, rather than moving on another
No,
topic.
I agree with that.
Do people have an appetite to try to define that?
Yeah.
And if somebody does, then draw the solution of how we might tackle that.
I think we'll find when we start going through this, how many of these things we can be black and white, either by a certain height, a certain
Mhm.
dimension, a certain percentage, versus if it's just through, because all this is still by conditional use. And you just measure it against the intent. Because again, if someone could have a very densely wooded lot there now, and again, we've got the black book to reference. There could be situations where you take the same 500 square feet, someone wants to move from this side to this side, it has much more impact on property A than it does on property C, because property, whichever, I forget my example,
No.
one is very open already and one is full of cedars, and you really can't see through that property currently.
Mhm.
But that may change in the future too with a new owner.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think you have to look to the future. Just because there are a lot of cedars there now, somebody might come in and clean that all up.
Mhm.
Well, and depending, they could, I don't want to say use that to their advantage, but if it's densely wooded now, you should apply for your application to tweak your footprint before you go and cut a bunch of trees. If you go and cut a bunch of trees, now you've created a visual opening, which is right in line with our ordinance, but then that's gonna limit you in the future to footprint modification, because now you're covering up that open space you just created the year before.
The problem with trees is they come and they go. All the vegetation, all landscaping coming, that would be, in my view, a very difficult thing for police, even reaching the agreement price. I mean, are we gonna go out there and measure 42 inches, and when it's 6 feet tall or 8 feet tall, that gets really rough.
I say yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
That's fine, but do we want to, I don't know, it's feeling to me personally like a little bit of an overstretch. Not if someone comes in and says, I'm gonna clear the lot, then we say, you gotta do a landscaping plan.
Yeah.
Either say you're not gonna touch anything, find the landscaping plan. If you're gonna touch any landscaping plan. But the people that aren't gonna touch things, I wouldn't want them to say, oh, let me build a wider house and cut down all the cedars, because I would say, well, in 10 years, the cedars can just grow back up again. So that's not really a trade-off. I would rather deal with the real hardscape and try to leave the landscaping alone.
Mhm.
But to get, okay, if we can agree on that, what would be the approach, jumping down to another part of the ordinance, wherever you want to put it, of limiting how much wider a building could be than the existing building? How would we do that if we had an appetite to do it?
Well, I must admit, it sounds pretty harsh, but I keep going back to that line in the intent that was there in the old version and still there in the new. The structures shall be restricted to those in existence as of 1996. In other words, our baseline is nothing changes. Well, then nothing changes. I'm sorry. The width you have is the width you got.
I agree. Otherwise, we're giving away the show.
And you can rearrange stuff again. We've already accommodated that, and you can go up if you have a single story, but you can't go wider. And again, that's pretty harsh. But I do think it's defensible and it's consistent with the original intent.
So again, you could, using that idea, just because I know that it's like a little single wide, you could take that Lutz property, and it's got the, well, we'll deal with that later, but just the building itself.
Mhm.
You could redesign it so that the footprint that is facing the street, it's just one long rectangle,
Mhm.
got smaller. But then maybe they put something on the back side or something on the front side within setbacks,
Yeah.
right? And then go up. But they couldn't elongate it because the existing footprint is like it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
What Andy's saying though is more strict than that. Andy's saying that you got a footprint and that's all
You
you
gotta
got.
work within
That's
that
what you said. That
Stay within the footprint. Well, that is.
structure shall be restricted to those in existence as of January 1998.
Well, again, that's not a hard and fast statement because as a matter of fact, we're allowing tear down.
Which I don't even understand the intent of that full sentence.
Yeah, I don't know.
At this point, it's not even true.
If you look at the original, it's from the original ordinance.
Right.
And all they would allow is a burn down and a replacement.
You could simply say, no. No, I retract
Well, I think it's
that.
saying if it's burned down, you're relegated only to what was existing. You're not gonna increase your footprint.
Right.
It's mostly for burning down, I think.
Well, and that applies to any work out there that we don't allow an increased footprint.
And they certainly have been raised and new, but I think what that did is establish if you don't have a home on your lot prior to 1998, you're not gonna get one.
Right. Yeah, that's the strength of the IDMP. So, there's certain things under conditional uses that you can build docks and boat rentals and so forth, but you're not gonna build another house for residents. So, and maybe that was the point of that the structure shall be restricted to those in existence. And now, especially since our last interpretation of the new ordinance, it said, we don't allow combining of the structures. You can replace each one of them at no larger of a size. But then trying to come back to solve this or agree on this one situation, what about widths? What about widths? Because that has to do with the open viewing.
I say we don't allow
Well,
increase.
don't allow an increase, but we'd allow a narrowing if somebody would want to. They have that long house now and they say, I want to build a cube. Because I can be more efficient in building upstairs. So it could be narrower, but no wider.
Probably.
Is that what people are feeling? Well, in other words, you can make it narrow and then the view is even better for the pedestrian walking down the
Well,
street.
and you can rearrange it, like you just said, you could trade width for depth,
But no more.
no more width.
No more width.
Okay.
And you can move it within
Yeah.
within the legal footprint.
Right.
But it just can't, the total width can't be any greater.
And
I mean, I think we had that a little bit with culture, didn't we? That it's actually inside the far, which way is that? The far north, original footprint set back just a little bit from that. I'm not sure. I have to look. Forget I said that. I don't know what I'm talking about.
why don't we do this? Let's make a note under design criteria, because I think that's where things like this belong. And then we can work on language. We don't have to do the whole thing right now. No additional width of building.
Yeah, maybe for visual impact.
Okay. Other comments on the general intent? Are we?
What do we, I want to pick up Rick's question
Yep.
about that last sentence.
Yep.
And should we think about saying that in another way, or just let it stand and maybe, because obviously we go on to say, yeah, but you can, but we're calling that modification.
I mean, do we want to see properties that did not have structures after this date are prohibited from being improved? I mean, is that the intent of what they're trying to say here? That's really the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, they can under conditional use 3A. Someone could apply for that.
No, but I'm saying that, what is the intent for saying structures shall be restricted to those in existence? Are they saying that that's the size you're limited to, or the fact that that property can only have a structure?
Yes, the properties that are now without a structure cannot build homes.
And we should say that the vacant properties as of that date
No.
shall remain vacant, or something like that, maybe.
I think they're also trying to weave in there the fact that small non-conforming lots,
No, and I like that
We
part of it.
grandfathered all that, okay.
Yeah, I like that part of it. It's not even the whole last sentence, it's the last phrase, the last.
The structure shall be restricted.
Yeah, are they talking about vacant property right there? And if so, then we should just say that.
Isn't that what we're talking about, Ken? It's not.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Why don't,
Well, I think, I mean, obviously, I don't know what they meant in 1998. But to me, the spirit of it is saying, no, you can't do a darn thing here. And the only exceptions we make is if the place burns down. I mean, I think the old ordinance was kind of written that way. Now, I think we've kind of come to realize that's a little unreasonable. But, because I mean, the old ordinance, you could either reproduce it, or I guess now you could modify it, couldn't you?
In the original, all you can do is maintain it.
Yeah. Really.
Maintain or replace if it was
Get
destroyed.
by natural disaster.
So I think we've got to rewrite this, because whatever they meant in 1996 is not what we want to say now.
Well, not necessarily, because I think what they're trying to do is say, okay, there was no, let's say that property with the high trees now. Let's say they wanted to put a little beach house down there on that little shorefront property. They say, well, now we'd like to put a little structure to change their clothes or whatever, a little beach house. I think this gives us teeth to say, no, that wasn't there as of 1998, and you're not allowed to put any little structure.
What if we add a sentence that as of January 1, 1998, no new structures are allowed on properties that did not have a structure at that point in time? Because I still like that sentence and the whole restriction. We're not saying that you can't change a structure. We're saying that they shall be restricted to
No
those
new
in existence.
structures.
Right.
I-
And maybe we can just add a sentence that specifically, no new structures are allowed
Mhm.
in the protected waterfront period.
Well, is the replacement of a house, like let's go to Price, is that a new structure? I
No,
think
that-
so.
That existed.
I mean, I'm playing with definitions
You're
here now.
replacing an existing.
You're granted, you're replacing, but they tore it down to the foundation.
But isn't that unless otherwise noted or provided for in the section? Because yes, those were modified, those were raised and reproduced under this section.
Okay, well, all right, thank you for reminding me of that line in there. Unless otherwise noted or provided for.
What if we just say, like, we keep it like it is, structures shall not be restricted to those in existence as of January 1, 1998. And then, no buildings are allowed on vacant lots. I mean, it's,
Lots without structure.
yeah, lots without structures, or some way to,
Does every structure out there, except for ours at the beachfront, say, at the marina, I'm sorry, and the beach, every structure out there is on a lot with the residents, I believe? Because what we're really, I guess we're trying to get at, no residents, period.
No structures at all.
But I'm saying that we don't have any lots out there with just a structure and not a home, not a residence.
Well, I mean,
What we do,
now we're getting into building versus structure again, a little bit, which I hate to do. But I mean, there are
South Shore Pier.
South Shore Pier.
the gazebo at the end of the dock.
Yep.
The gazebo at the end of the dock.
Yep.
Pine Grove has that little, what you call that?
Yeah.
Pergola
Yep.
gazebo structure
Okay.
thing.
Rick's got some.
I struggle. Because this is a mission statement, would we want to say something like, get rid of the word since, and start that sentence with most of the residential buildings that are sited on small non-conforming lots that would otherwise prohibit the erection of such structures under the existing ordinance. So far what I've read there, that is part of the intent, that's part of the mission statement, that's part of the problem that we have here in the protected waterfront. And then under the existing ordinance, and then do something right after ordinance.
So you want to do a period after structures?
Well, and they kind of do it. What we want to say after the word ordinance, I think we want to, and they kind of do it, except for as provided in this section. So what we're doing is after, from most until ordinance, that's the mission statement. That's the problem we're dealing with in the section. And then we provide for in the rest of the ordinance how you can stray from that. So I guess I have to think it through, but in terms of maybe it would, existing ordinance, except as provided for in the section, period. And then have a sentence, I think Grace said it before, another sentence, get rid of structures in 1998 and put in, properties that do not have a structure as of January 1, 1998 shall remain vacant, or whatever, however we say it. But just to leave it like that as the mission. That way we are saying, look, we are allowing you to do something with these properties. But because these are non-conforming small lots, we are being extremely restrictive in the rest of this section. And leave it at that, leave it like that for the intent. And then all of the other stuff, whether we can be wider, taller, whatever goes into the body of it under design criteria. That way we get specific. I just have to think it through how we would, word it, but much of this last sentence I think is okay, except for the last phrase. But it just, does that make any sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is no new buildings are going to be added.
As of 1998.
As of 1998.
Correct.
Yes,
Buildings.
right.
Okay,
But the previous to that, it's part of our mission statement saying that this is the trouble that we're dealing with in this is why we're restrictive, is because these are small lots.
as the chairman,
We have-
I take the authority to assign this to Mr. Hoyerman. I think you're right, I think you're on the right track.
Right.
Yeah, if you want to chair, you can chair too.
No, I'll take a stab at
Or
it.
you take a step, okay. Because I think we're on the right, this is going to be the broad statement that everything else is going to live under. Okay, okay. Permitted use, let's spend a couple minutes on that. Is there any desire to change what is permitted? Park and open space, provided that any proposed structure are given conditional use approval, that means back to us. Beaches, provided any proposed structural elements are given consideration, conditional use, again, back to us. Pretty restrictive, but no desire to change that. Okay. Then the first part of conditional use is pretty easy, but we'll just go through 3A just one more time. Where there is not a residence, and now we just defined under intent what those lots are that didn't have a residence as of 1998. You could build dockage or launching, which we have both public and private right now, boat rentals and related rentals, which I guess are primarily private. Sale of marine fuel, accessories, marine use only. New structures necessary for permitted uses in the district, including bathrooms. And then nonprofit organizations on village-owned property. Sales within such shall be subject to the existing leases or other agreements with the village. In the event that no such agreement speaking to sales exists, the village agree from planning committee through conditional use review shall oversee and have final approval. This review will include, but is not limited to, the type of merchandise sold and the total amount of display area. This number 5 might come into place like at South Shore Pier. It's because since I've been on the plan committee, I don't remember ever dealing with this number
But they're not a
5.
nonprofit.
Oh, you're right, they're not a nonprofit.
I think we're talking like of the village visitor center. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, you're right.
Hmm.
But is there a desire to change this, or is it? I guess it's working. Like I said, I don't think I've ever, have you ever seen one come up? Brent?
No, I think the last time would have been when the graffiti issue started to kick off. There was a conversation with the Hardy about whether they could or could not sell paint kits and things.
Okay.
That was probably the last time it was discussed.
Oh, that's interesting. So that should come before the plan committee then,
As written.
right? As written, okay. Any desire to change any of those?
That's good.
Okay. Okay. And then B, and this is why we're sitting here today, on parcels where there is a residence, number 1, Addition modifications to a replacement of existing residence, subject to 1725. Okay, that's the design review. And number 2, residents destroyed by natural disasters or fires in this district may be replaced using the former dimensions and locations. Is that any longer true? Since we have given now everyone the right to go up to 23 feet for the roof line. And we've given them the right, although we're thinking about it, of reshaping the footprint.
I mean, and maybe this is a question for Rick, our legal counsel. I think it's saying they have the right to reproduce what they have. If they want to, in doing so, apply for a conditional use for a modification, they could do that as well. But they have the right to reproduce what they have. Basically, not a whole lot we can do about that, nor would we want to. But if they want to modify that, then I would say they fall under
Conditional use.
under 5. Whether or not that's clear or not, that would be my interpretation
Okay.
of what that is intended to be.
Some too should almost just be a conditional use, shouldn't it be? Residents destroyed, if they're gonna do the exact same building, same dimension, same everything, isn't that just a conditional use?
Or do they need a conditional use?
Right, or even a permitted use, I don't know.
That's a permitted use.
Yeah.
Right, Brent, that's what you're saying. The difference is.
Well, it's written as a conditional use.
Yeah, I don't know why it's here under conditional use.
Well, it would be condition, the condition is that they build it identical, so it's still, I think that would be the condition.
No, okay.
I would say we could consider making it a permitted use, but then I would say probably make it more reproduced using former, as far as placed, which one is stronger to exactly match or as close as possible what was there. Is that a replacement or a reproduction?
Yeah, I would put reproduction.
That's
Maybe
Not
add
exactly.
Yeah.
location and style or, and.
So then it would just be a design
Then it would just be
review
a design.
for reproduction. Okay. It's a good point.
Is that golden in this? I can't remember. Is he conditional use or is he?
That's conditional use.
Because he is adding a second floor.
Yeah.
So we're gonna call it reproduction as
Yeah,
opposed to
I
replacement.
like, at least for now, knowing we've got several meetings, I like the idea of moving that up to a permitted use.
Okay. And then it would just take a design review,
Subject to design.
Yeah, subject to design review.
design review. Okay.
But the minute they wanna.
Wait, want to change, want to add a
Well,
story?
I'm thinking of rearranging the footprint, but that's already now.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, we are, this is just me talking now, we are looking at exterior. So if someone says, I'm gonna reproduce that volume, those 3
The
dimensions,
box itself.
we're not gonna say, wait a minute, you used to have 2 bedrooms and now you got 3,
Oh, yeah.
right? That's just that'll just be a design review and making sure they meet all the standards.
Do we need to say
They can
that
rearrange
somehow
the rooms
again?
if they want.
Yep, we're looking at the exterior, because that goes back to our intent.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, special exception review, number 4. The provisions of the section, including the setback and lot coverage requirements of 1724, shall be mandated, except in the case of building structures or public projects along the shoreline that are deemed to be in the greatest interest to the public by the majority of the plan committee and a majority of the village board, and this exception can occur only through the special exception review. And these would be public use type of projects like our marina, and like having a bathroom.
Yep.
And the house at the marina, okay. Any problem with that? We want to have that in there, but that still has to come before a plan, and ultimately the village board has to approve.
The example would be if somebody wanted to redesign, or like if the village, someone in the village wanted to redesign the back house area, then that would just come back through plan and the village board as well.
Well, if they wanted to, I would say, if they stayed in that box that they have right now, I guess we'd have a design review, but if they wanted to make it bigger, bathroom and have whatever, food or, I don't know.
Right, right,
Then they have to come back to us and then go to the building.
okay.
Okay. Number 5, addition, modifications to or replacement of existing residence, PW design review, completed by HPC and plan committee. General requirements. Number 1, addition, modification, or replacement projects, including existing dimensionally non-conforming structures considered under this section, may apply the existing grandfathered setbacks of the existing structures as the required setback for new work, so long as the new work increases or at a minimum does not further encroach on the setbacks in question. Read that and,
Why did we put increases in this?
Well, it's saying it backwards.
yeah, it says it backwards. If we increase the setbacks,
Okay, okay, all right, I see what,
Yeah,
yeah.
it decreases the footprint.
less non-conforming.
And
Which is interesting because, and again, it comes down to how important is the intent statement. But where we talked about, not increasing any additional width as it applies to the view from the road. We could have projects where, say they had, let's keep that same 500 square feet that's close to the road. They could pull off that 500 square feet that's completely within the front setback area. Want to put that parallel to the water, completely in a setback compliant location that based on this is more compliant, is more in line with our dimensional standards of the ordinance, although it would want to follow to the width thing. So again, it's kind of interesting because generally speaking, we would look favorably on something that was pulling off something dimensionally non-conforming, making it more conforming because they're moving it to the center of the lot. But again, that's where it runs contrary to the width we're talking.
are you saying that's a problem or not? I'm not quite
Yeah,
sure I'm
it's-
following you.
It's kind of where I was leading to when I wanted to discuss the view first, because I see it as impactful here. Because this is the overarching, any addition, modification project, you're bound by the grandfather footprints you have. You can work within that box. But now with that addition, provided you don't make it any wider.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know where that language is gonna live, but as we talked about it as, additional design criteria under, 2 here, visual impact from the street to be minimized, that would be a natural place, provided it's no wider than the widest point of the building presently, however we're gonna do that as viewed from the road. But also 1 is really establishing what that footprint is or what your building envelope is. This also is a place where you read one thing in parent 1, then you jump down to B2, and now there's contrary information to that.
What good does that number 1 do us, Brent?
To me, that's the crux of where can someone build. That's establishing when someone in a perfect world is starting on a vacant lot, they come with a new certified survey map that shows my new lot is 2 acres. And here's that survey with the superimposed 40-foot front setback from the right of way, 2 15-foot sides and 40-foot rear. That tells that person, okay, this is what I call my building envelope. I can build anywhere within that box. So that's kind of what that's doing, is it's drawing that new line, taking the setbacks that are already in place, whether that's 40 feet from the right of way, 40 feet from the high water mark, 2 15-foot sides, plus any additional lines that are grandfathered with the existing footprint. So to me, that's giving them their building envelope, if you would.
So this doesn't necessarily contradict, in my mind, saying to them, by the way, you can't build anything wider than your existing house.
No, I mean, no.
This
And-
puts an
and-
envelope.
And it helps as long as our new PW ordinance is still 2 to 3 pages long and not 15. I don't like, contradictions where you read something on page 37 and it's contradicted on page 72. At least it's still part of a very short document. But just worth noting that language we talked about is kind of another design criteria, not really the general requirement, but it certainly is impactful on the general.
I think we need that.
Yeah, we definitely need it. I'm just wondering if it's really contrary to then having an additional statement that, by the way, the building width cannot be any wider than it. So it still has to fit, the new work has to fit in this envelope that you're defining.
Well, these lots are all pretty small too, right? So we're basically saying that if, to rebuild the house, you are dealing with the grandfathered setbacks, so then your envelope is only that big. And then you can place the house anywhere in your envelope.
Mhm.
But the reality is it doesn't give people a whole lot of options, right? Just because, because they're all pretty small, non-conforming lots anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily see a contradiction there, as long as, and I assume that width thing is gonna come under, design criteria, where I think we should try to house all of our height and everything else specifically in that part. Look, we can give that a little more thought, but let's go on to number 2. Footprints in the protected waterfront district can be modified. We need some work. But increases to the total footprint of individual structures within the district are prohibited. Now, we interpret that to mean, and people have abided by it so far, that we do not allow any one of the individual structure footprints to increase. We don't allow combinations. And was that said elsewhere?
No, I think this is the place we say that.
Okay.
Add it.
And maybe this is the place where we talk about the width too.
We could, we'll see where the width fits best, but we could. But so do we have 2 thoughts we want to make here? That number 1, that individual footprints cannot be combined. And then we're gonna have to still define what that's a footprint. Well, if I got a roof attaching my garage to my house and all that stuff, but if we could say individual footprints cannot be combined, and then the footprints of individual structures cannot be increased. What I'm trying to say is if you have 3 structures, you can fool around with those, but they can't be overall increased. So if you have a shed that's 50 square feet, it can't be any more than 50 square feet. But then you get back to, what about the width? Now, when you go through these properties, as we did, there's not that many that have accessory buildings beyond pretty small sheds. Pretty small sheds, but it's worth thinking about here.
Were there any additional that had a secondary dwelling, or there was like another cottage or something? Finished living space.
What's his name over here?
Schmelz? Tony Schmelz?
He combined,
Oh, that's
Tony combined it.
Okay.
He had a breezeway and it's
Oh,
conditions,
okay.
so that's,
But it's two different units.
Yeah, but that's 2 different.
yeah. And then there was another one, how was it? I'm trying to think. There's another one that had,
But did they have individual structures?
wasn't there Munn? Does Munn have anything?
Oh, you might be right. We're gonna have to go back to the black one.
Oh, I'm thinking of that was up on Anderson Lane.
Oh, yeah, and I was gonna come back to that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Krebs had, they had 3, they reproduced or
Right,
replaced and built 2.
right.
Which again, just, I think it's important as we go through this, get halfway through this process, take a dive through the black book, then
Yeah.
go again and come back, how does it apply to what we actually have?
Yeah.
But what's interesting, and again, I think with the recent ones, based on the ordinance we have in place relative to, individual buildings and footprints defined by, a building that's, surrounded by walls. That was used with Cultra, can this be combined, can it not? No, under the current ordinance, they're two independent buildings. Now kind of like with the one, establishing that building envelope, if you will, kind of the trump card on top of that is the width. You can do this, but the width still dictates. The width almost is the most important piece of this in a way. Relative to that Krebs project, again, this was the protected waterfront ordinance 2 times ago, so not even the one that Laird was asking about. This was the PW before, but then we specifically had language that allowed people to take footprints from other buildings and combine them into 2 or 1, whatever it was, of like uses. That's important too. Not talking of taking a shed and adding more finished space to your, detached shed, attaching it to the home, making it finished space. But in the name of width and open view space, that Krebs project, there were 3 distinct homes on that property, 1 principal, 2 more cottagey type. So relative to open view space, they probably drastically reduced and increased the view by doing that. So I'm not trying to throw more question marks into this, but if the name is width and open view space, there is a world in which you could take that space and condense it from a width standpoint, opening up more views by allowing.
Oh, I see.
So then it comes to what is the most important part. Now, I don't see a world in which we'd want to take, garage square footage attached to the house, and now that 500 square foot garage, only 200 of that is garage, and the other 300 is now part of the finished living space. That's where I don't like combining unlike uses.
And you're inviting someone to throw a bed into a garage and say, let's.
Correct.
combine, yeah.
Correct. But
Are you describing could you let's stick with your garage, I was thinking more of a shed, but, okay, I'm going back to the width question. Let's say that you combine a secondary structure with the primary structure, and actually don't increase the total width. Again, they may push it this way. Why is that a problem? As long as, again, the question is, it's the same viewing width as you had before. You haven't increased that.
So you're saying if somebody had a detached garage right now
Yeah,
and they just want to push it together, they're going to keep the detached garage the same 200 square feet, whatever it is, but they want to push it in the house.
push it together.
Could that be, why is that a problem for us as long as they,
The total width, the total width, obstructed view
there's no worse?
is no worse.
Maybe we need language in here about this on number 2. This is where we also have to say that the uses can't be modified. The use of the structures cannot be modified. So what you're saying is we can let a house be pushed against the garage as long as he doesn't, what Coulter did at the beginning, try to use half the garage as the house.
I'm really thinking that it's like to like, you can't change the use. Let's say a guy has a house and a shed and wants to add the shed to the total footprint of the house because he doesn't need the shed and he wants more room. But he doesn't increase the total width. In fact, we might get rid of the obstructive view caused by the shed.
Right, we don't get a new shed.
Yeah, the answer is, you either add that width to the house, which I think he would be allowed to do under this logic, or better, he may reduce the total because he's taking away the shed and adding it to the front of the house on the water side, so it's not obstructing the view. He's gaining square footage, but he's pushing it this way instead of wide. Does that make sense?
Well,
I think why not? That's actually a good thing.
but I thought, well,
But it's got to remain,
I thought we
It's
wanted
gotta
to
remain in the
avoid
setback.
that. Avoid.
Yeah,
combining.
right.
you can't, it's not grandfathered setback if he's gonna push it.
Right, well, no, I guess I'm assuming that he has room to do that. Yeah. Now, whether that's true or not is another question, but again, your point is these lots are also restricted to begin with, but okay.
And we're counting as a setback to the high water mark, correct? In addition to that, are we counting that as a setback? We're just talking
I
about
think so.
width and to the highway. That's a setback too, correct?
And a size.
So at some point, this becomes their problem. I mean, we're gonna allow it, and if you can't do it, you can't do it.
Correct.
So for number 2, getting back to your individual maybe 2 sentences, individual footprints in the PW district cannot be combined.
Right.
Do we want to say that?
Right, that, well,
Period.
that's the,
I'm thinking, even though it's just the opposite. I'm
Yeah, right,
testing-
right.
I'm testing whether, maybe that's not the problem. The problem is the total obstruction of the view, generally defined by width,
We don't want
and it's gotta be total.
And it's tough to prioritize what is the
Yeah,
most
to,
important
exactly.
piece of
And
this.
then the
Yeah.
So that's
second,
where I brought it up, is if that open view space is the most important, then we could benefit from
Right.
more relaxation of that
structures.
footprint combination, if you will.
Yeah.
But the width of the principal residence can't increase.
right.
Well, or would we allow that?
Would you
Again,
allow
if-
it to
if,
increase
say
to
you
the
have-
width of the shed you removed?
Yeah, so you had a 40-foot wide from the road home, 20-foot wide, and again, I don't know if this exists on paper or not, a 20-foot wide, structure. You got, 60 total feet of encumbered view from the water. They want to, there's a little alcove within there, they can tuck 10 feet within, the existing width, but 10 feet might extend beyond the current, but your net is plus 10.
But you're not making it wider though. I guess what Andy was saying before is that you can, if they go towards the water or towards the road, if they have room there, that's good. We don't want to allow them to increase the width of the principal residence. So they
Well,
can keep
no,
the shed.
I was arguing, keep going, but that's not what I was saying.
No, you're saying they could enlarge the width of the principal residence.
As long as the total width, I mean, they're stealing it from the obstructive width of a shed that they tore down. I think that's what Brent's saying. You got a shed that's 10 foot wide. You can add, theoretically, take that away and add 10 feet to the width of the house. Now you're breaking even.
But,
now you're increasing the.
yeah, all of a sudden, so we're gifting
Well,
these
no.
people, and this, I think, when you look through the black book, is going to create some problems.
Mhm.
Then certain people are really gonna benefit with the bigger house because they have a shed.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now, to me, if we wanna do something like that, there should be a gain for us, and I think that's where Brett was going. If there's a reduction in the width through a combination, then we might have the latitude of allowing some of that to be used
Okay, that's clever.
in the house,
Split the difference.
not just if it's a wash,
Or we could just, it just can't get wider. The principal residence just can't get wider. And that's,
Okay,
the
well,
principal residence, so they have to absorb the other thing
they would
inside
have
of
to
it.
go front to back if they're gonna absorb it.
that's what you're saying. I see the difference
Yes.
between the way I was saying and the way.
I like that because it's
I
simple.
like yours better.
Yeah.
Simple.
It's simple and
Yeah.
there's a motivation there. You get some extra living space. But then, then we gotta think about, okay, now they bring in this 200-foot wide little garage. Or actually 200-foot wide, 200 square feet, 100 square feet, whatever. And then they build a second story over it.
That's a different question.
It's a different question.
Aren't we increasing the footprint then somehow? If we're adding the shed?
Well, now we're saying we would allow, well, I think what we're considering is we would allow the combination if the principal house is still only 40 feet wide, the shed over here, you tuck it in the back somewhere, and now we have more viewing from the street. If they absorb the whole thing in there.
I mean, that's a slippery slope. That's increasing the footprint somehow. I don't know.
Well, it's
We'd be,
Am I wrong?
we'd be allowing
Yeah.
combining, we'd be allowing combining footprints
I don't know.
if the principal structure and total structures are no wider than the principal. I don't know, we could work on the language.
But we're not including garages. Or are we?
No, I mean, why, because then you're adding more living space.
That's what concerns me is, I mean, that is exactly what we had with Culture.
Yeah.
They were going to push the garage in, but we realized, wait, you have this little storage area and you're converting it, most of it, to living.
Well, and Price's wanted to do that too at
Yeah.
first, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And leaving out the bulk of the second floor, because that is a whole nother topic.
Right.
Again, if primary goal number one is to maximize open viewing. Again, minus the second floor, the first iteration of Cultra would have done that because it was squeezing everything a little narrower than it was present.
Right.
So you're asking us what our number one priority is.
Yeah, I think, well, that's.
I think that'll be
Way to look
important
at
in
this.
framing this whole thing.
Yeah, maybe culture wants to wait. Again, for the sake of argument, I'm gonna say the garage could apply, this could apply to the garage too. Let's take culture. As long as the total width or obstruction of the view does not, which way am I saying it?
It get worse.
Yeah.
Increase or decrease.
I don't see where we're gaining anything. I think there's gotta be a gain for us. If we're gonna gift
It would have to-
living space, it's gonna have to be a big gain. I'm more apt to go with like Rick. If you can embed that in the house by putting it on the back,
But I think
whatever.
Andy's talking about that, though. I think that he's.
No, he said the total.
But you're not wanting a wider principal residence. Or are you?
Is the question whether the total, the width applies on the residence or the total width of everything you used to have?
That he has a shed. It's a set standalone structure. He has a principal residence, say it's 40 feet wide,
And the shed is 10.
and the shed is 10. You're gonna then allow a 50-foot principal residence.
That's what I was arguing. I've now gone to your position to say, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm coming back to I make the same argument for a garage? What's the difference between a shed and a garage in terms of obstructing the view? They both obstruct the view.
Bulk.
But we're gonna solve that.
I think what's gonna get difficult is if you have a decent sized garage or even a small garage and you embed that in the house, then the second floor is gonna be no man's land. It's just what we had with Cultra.
Yeah, okay.
They start building over the second floor.
Garage
It's
is
like
not
who's on
gonna have
first?
even a half.
Unless we get to the story and a half and we define that it can only be a certain percentage.
And say something like it can be 50, I saw 65% in one of the suggestions, or 50%, or 700 square feet, whichever amount is smaller. We could do something like that, so that we eliminate the bulk. I mean, I don't know, it just,
Couldn't you make the same argument about a shed, though? A shed is not gonna have a half story on top of it. I guess, I don't know if any of those garages do have sort of an attic storage.
I don't
I mean, you
recollect
could-
any garages with.
No. And you could, however it's worded, reclaim footprint to be added to a principal, cannot have living space above a first floor or something too. I mean, you could limit.
I mean, to
If
answer
you
your
take
question.
that 10 by 10, add it to the principal, that has to remain, under 15 feet tall or
Yeah,
single
that
story
gets kind of
or
technical.
something.
Yeah, I like that. So you can add it in.
And maybe it gets nowhere, it's important to talk about, I think, but ultimately, I think that piece, other than if we want to add the lot width there, the open viewing to there somewhere, on its own, I think we're pretty clear on that, as it's written. The fallback is a structure is a structure, you can't increase the footprint to a structure. That's pretty clear. I mean, we need to do some work on definitions of, because we talked about habitable condition versus footprint and closed by walls, there's some work to be done there. But as it's written, as it's been applied this year, I think that's pretty clear. If it's attached by way of walls, that's part of the footprint for building.
Attached by way of walls, not a roof over a breezeway.
Correct.
What if I think this has really been a good discussion. I think it's got merits. But before we try to solve that, and some of these others, let's keep going through to see what else we can
Yeah,
work
but
on.
this is raising all the right issues.
Right. Number 3, all projects are subject to the applicable dimension standards in 1724 of the ordinance unless otherwise noted or provided in this section. BD, I thought you had an issue that you and I have talked about before, going to 1724. Can we bring 1724 up on
Well, which,
Is that all the dimensional standards, 1724?
yes.
And then it lists protect the waterfront,
And I think what I probably consider doing here
oh, proration?
is, yeah, and then proration is a little different because PW is different than R1 because PW doesn't carry the same max square footage or max lot size.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a conversation worth having. But here, honestly, it's one little section. It's like 4 or 5 numbers, you know, front setback side, you
Right,
know, high water,
right.
impervious surface. I'd probably like to just include those numbers within here, just a small table of what those dimension standards
Okay,
are.
okay. So it'll be good.
Again, which is going to be used in combination with the individual characteristics of the lot for what those grandfathered setbacks for each property are.
Okay. We can hold the proration as another idea of talking about when we,
Well, it's just to kind of grab your attention, and all these lots are so small that what's on there now is bigger than what a proration would allow.
If you had a 1/4 acre lot and we went with this proration, you could allow for houses 2,175 square feet.
Yeah, so it's, although.
But that's a
I'm
1/4
using
acre lot.
R1 numbers,
Yeah.
5,000 square feet, which is what we do up on Silver Springs Road, under Burton.
and you guys are suggesting that is a way to come up with a maximum number of square foot that anyone would be allowed.
Did you say that you, just to have a flat out maximum of 1,800 square feet?
Yeah, I was just going for a hard number,
Right, right.
you know, and I think Christ was at what, 1770 something, and Crawford's at 1922. Schmelz is about just under 14. So those are the 3 in a row. And I just want to show everybody a picture